Horror movies rarely get big budgets. With little money and no-name actors, most are lucky to break even. But some of them defy the odds, dominating the box office, shaping the genre, and earning back hundreds of times what they cost. These are the ones that made it big. In the late 1950s, Alfred Hitchcock was already a legendary director. But when he decided to adapt Robert Bloch's dark novel Psycho, no one wanted to support the project. Studios thought the story was too violent and disturbing, even though Hitchcock had delivered hit after hit with films like Rear Window and Vertigo. Eventually, Paramount agreed to back the film, but gave him a tiny budget of just $800,000 to $7,000, far less than the $4.3 million he had for North by Northwest. Still, Hitchcock pushed forward, filming in black and white and using a TV crew to save money. The risk paid off. Psycho earned $50 million and became Hitchcock's biggest hit. After years of making commercials, George A. Romero decided to direct his first feature film. Inspired by I Am Legend, he created Night of the Living Dead, a low-budget zombie movie that would change horror forever. Though the initial budget was $6,000, it eventually rose to $114,000. Romero feared the film's gore and harsh reviews would drive audiences away, but instead the opposite happened. The film earned $30 million, 263 times its budget, making it the most successful independent horror of its time, and a box office hit in Europe the following year. Night of the Living Dead didn't just launch Romero's career, it redefined the zombie genre. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre had a budget of just $60,000, so director Tobe Hooper did everything he could to save money. Instead of using fake blood, he sometimes cut actors with a razor. For slaughterhouse scenes, he used real animal corpses. It was cheaper, though the smell on set was awful. Editing ended up costing more than the original budget, forcing Hooper to raise another $80,000. Money was so tight, he had to sell off part of the film's royalties to get it finished. In the end, it paid off. The film earned $30.9 million, over 200 times its budget. It could have made even more, but it was banned in the UK before completing its theatrical run. This horror comedy musical tells the story of a newlywed couple who end up in a strange mansion after their car breaks down. There they meet Dr. Frank N. Furter, a wild cross-dressing scientist with a house full of bizarre creations. Although it had a modest $1.4 million budget, the film became a cult classic, thanks in large part to Tim Curry's unforgettable performance. While it didn't make much at first, midnight screenings turned it into a phenomenon. Over time, it earned around $500 million, making it one of the most successful musicals ever. The wild part? Many of the costumes were handmade, and some props were literally made of cardboard, but you'd never guess it watching the movie. Halloween begins with young Michael Myers murdering his sister. 15 years later, he escapes from a mental hospital and starts killing again. The story was simple, and so was the budget. With just $300,000 to work with, director John Carpenter had to cut corners. Actors wore their own clothes. Jamie Lee Curtis was paid $8,000, and Nick Castle, who played Michael, earned only $25 a day. Even the now iconic mask cost less than $2. Carpenter didn't expect the film to make money, but Halloween brought in $47 million, nearly 150 times its budget. You'd never guess Friday the 13th would launch a massive franchise, judging by how critics reacted. Gene Siskel called it a cruel and artless film. Reviews like that made it seem doomed to fail. But audiences didn't care. Made for just $550,000, the film earned $59.8 million worldwide, over 100 times its budget. It became the most successful horror movie of the year and was even released internationally, which was rare for a low-budget indie with no big-name stars. Ironically, the original Friday the 13th remains the highest-grossing entry in the franchise, even though Jason Voorhees, the hockey-masked killer the series is known for, doesn't actually appear in it. Film students Daniel Merrick and Eduardo Sanchez came up with the Blair Witch Project in 1993. To keep costs low, they shot it in a found footage style. Though they hoped to spend $20,000, the budget grew to $60,000. After finishing the first cut, they showed it at small festivals. Based on feedback, they spent over $500,000 on reshoots and marketing before bringing it to Sundance. The plan was to maybe get it on cable TV, but the buzz was huge. Artisan Entertainment picked up the rights and gave it a wide release. Though it opened in just 27 theaters, the Blair Witch Project made $1.5 million in its first weekend and expanded to over 2,000 theaters. By the end of its run, it had earned $248.6 million, making it one of the most successful indie films ever made. In 1998, an American couple vanished during a diving trip in Australia. The tragic story inspired scuba divers Chris Kentis and Laura Lau to make Open Water, a low-budget thriller about two people stranded in shark-infested waters. They filmed on weekends and holidays over 2.5 years, using basic cameras, their own gear, and a tiny crew. The original budget was $120,000, half of which went to renting real sharks for 2 days of filming. After editing and marketing, the final cost rose to $500,000. Open Water premiered at Sundance and was picked up by Lionsgate for theatrical release in 2003. Despite modest expectations, it earned $55.5 million, over 100 times its total budget, becoming one of the most profitable indie horror films of its time. In 2003, Lee Wannell and James Wan used $5,000 of their own money to shoot a 7-minute horror short called Saw. It impressed producers enough to get a $1.2 million budget for a full-length film. The movie premiered at Sundance and quickly gained attention. Lionsgate picked it up and originally planned to release it straight to DVD, but changed their mind and gave it a theatrical release in 2004. That decision paid off. Saw earned about $104 million worldwide, 86 times its budget, and launched a huge horror franchise with multiple sequels. Director Oren Peli got the idea for Paranormal Activity after strange noises in his home led him to set up a night camera. Inspired by that, he shot a horror film in his own house with no script, a $15,000 budget, and just 10 days of filming. The movie was finished in 2006 but didn't attract much attention at first. That changed when Steven Spielberg saw it and saw major potential. Paramount bought the rights, reshot the ending, improved the sound, and raised the total budget to $215,000. When Paranormal Activity was released worldwide in 2009, it became a box office sensation, earning $193 million, nearly 900 times its budget. It's still considered one of the most profitable horror films of all time.